Today we're going to go through how to scrape any website in Make.com using AI. So before we dive into Make.com, just want to share the three approaches we're going to be covering today. So first is just using the basic HTTP module in Make.com. So this is the most basic level of scraping. All we're doing is basically going directly to the URL, getting the HTML from that page, getting it back, and then passing it into AI. So whether that's OpenAI's models or Anthropic models or any other model. Usually, I'd recommend you start with this approach, and you only use this approach if you're trying to scrape a website that has a lot of protection in place, which will then block you when you're using the HTTP module. Now, I know some people, other YouTubers, other sort of websites online will say that you can get further with the HTTP module if you sort of mess around with the headers and sort of the cache and all that sort of stuff. And you can, and like I've done that before. But to be honest, like if you're running web scraping for any period of time, the time and effort that's required to sort of do those things is not really worth it, which brings us to the second one. The second approach is to use a specialized scraping provider. So these are sites like ScrapingBee or Zenrose, BrightData, those sorts of stuff, where these are software companies that focus on scraping. And they have API endpoints that let you just put in a URL, and then they will sort of do all the scraping protection, avoidance, capture stuff for you so that you can just focus on the actual scraping itself. So we'll go through that as a second step. And then the third step is around screenshot APIs. So it's similar to number two. We're using a third-party API. The difference here is by getting a screenshot and then passing it into AI, we can avoid a lot of the brittleness associated with web scraping. So if you've done web scraping in the past without AI, you'll know that you have to put in selectors to say like what pieces of data you want from the page. But if you're scraping a single page over a period of time, you know that the website will get updated, they'll change the design, that sort of stuff, which breaks your web scraping. If you're using a screenshot API with AI, then it will never break unless that data just completely disappears, because you just pass the whole image into AI and then ask the AI to just tell you what the pieces of data are. So no selectors, anything like that. Cool. One last thing before we get into Make.com is we're going to go through these approaches today, and I'll show you exactly how to do them, but it is still quite a bit of work to configure these, and you do have to use lots of different services. So as someone who builds a lot of AI products, AI automation, I'm actually building a new toolkit for building AI automations, and I'll be integrating that toolkit with Make.com's Zapier and making it available via API as well. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, I'll leave a link in the description. But without further ado, let's get into the tutorial. So here I have the example workflow that I'll be using to demonstrate the different approaches that I talked about. So this first block here, webhook, this is just a placeholder. I've just put it there just so I can run the different workflows as we go. So to start with, let's just go with the HTTP approach. So this works for most sites, especially sites that are not from large companies that have a lot of bot and scraping protection in place. So if we look at something like in my last video, I looked at news.ben's bytes. This is a smaller site, so they don't have too much protection in place, which means that it's very easy to just use the HTTP module. So you just put in the URL, use a get method, which is basically what you always use when you're scraping, and then you can just press run. Cool. So it's run now. You can see that it's come back with an output in the data, which is, just the HTML for the page. And from here, if you're not using AI, what you need to do then is figure out the specific parts of the page that you want. So maybe I want all of these titles, sort of open up Inspector in Google Chrome, try to figure out what I actually want, look at the class names, I want this sort of stuff, go back into Make.com and put that in. That is kind of time consuming and also is very sort of fragile, like it breaks very easily if the site updates. So if that's all you want, what I recommend actually is to use AI, and it's a lot faster and it's a lot more reliable and robust. So what you do instead of passing this directly into the AI is you first turn this HTML into text, because most of the stuff that's actually returned here is not required by the AI. Like, this stuff is useless. Like, we don't need any of this. These are the style sheets, the scripts that are running on the page. We only need everything in the body. So, and even then we don't need these HTML tags. We just need the content. So there is a tool in make.com that lets you just turn it into text. So I think it's called text parser. There it is. So we can turn HTML into text. So we'll just take the HTML from here and turn that into text. Because I didn't run the whole thing. Let's run the whole thing. Cool. Okay. Let's run this time and let's see. So now we've just got all the text for the page, which is a lot less noisy, a lot less random stuff. We could sort of filter this down further, but like it's fine. If you wanted to, you could probably just reduce it to the body first and then pass it through here, remove the URLs, all that sort of stuff. But again, just to keep this tutorial a bit simpler, let's not do that. So I've got the text now. Let's go to AI. So I'm going to use Anthropic Claude instead of OpenAI, just because the new models from Anthropic, Claude 3 models, are just so much better. So I'm just going to be using that. So let's use, so Opus is like the best model. It's better than GPT-4. Sonnet, I'd say, is roughly around GPT-4, and Haiku is between 3.5 and 4, but is a lot cheaper. So let's try with Opus just for this tutorial, but usually I would run through them, and a lot of the time I can actually run this stuff on Haiku rather than Opus and save a bit of money. But yeah, let's go through that. Let's just put in 1,000 tokens for fun. And let's see, let's pass in the text that we have. This is the text we got from Ben's Bytes. And what I'm actually going to do is, instead of putting it in my message, I'm going to put it in the system prompt, which is like the personality you give to your AI assistant. So let's say, let's just ask it to extract the top headlines of the day. Let's see if that works. So let's go back here. You will be given some text from a website of news items. Please list the top news items. Cool. So let's just run that. And like, in reality, you probably wouldn't want it to output text. You probably want it to return a JSON, just so that you can then sort of use each piece of news as you want. But let's see what it's come back with. So this is output. Let's see. So it said, more agents, all you need. Let's have a look. Yep, more agents, all you need. What else to say? Faraway dot a report from Google. Let's see. Faraway dot report from Google. Yeah. So there we go. It's sort of done that. And I use this a lot in content production. So to run my social media, write blog posts, that sort of stuff. You can imagine that you can take this whole list, summarize it, turn it into a blog post in and of itself, a newsletter, just summarizing the newest AI news for today, right? So even the most basic scraping approach can be very powerful, but it's probably not why you're watching this video. You're probably interested in what would happen if we try to scrape a site that's blocked. So Crunchbase is one of those sites that has quite a lot of protection in place. It sometimes works if you use the HTTP module, but if you sort of run it more than a couple of times, you'll get blocked. So for sites like that, I use a specialized provider, so something like Scraping Bee. So let me unlink this and let's go the other way now. So Scraping Bee, super simple. You can just sign up. They have trials. Scraping Bee and Zenrose have trials, so you can try them out. I've set up Scraping Bee, so I'm just going to go here and put in the URL. So just Crunchbase. And then if I run that, it should just go to Crunchbase and scrape it for me. If we have time, I might run it through the HTTP module as well to see if it works. It sometimes works, but if you do it more than a few times, it's going to fail. So yeah, looks like it's worked. It's scraped Crunchbase, and as per usual, lots of random stuff in the HTML. And here we do the same thing as we did before. So we will use the text parser again and convert the HTML to text. And let's run that through. And then from here, we can pass it into the AI to make sense of the text, right? So maybe I want to know where the company's based, how many employees they have, what industries they're in, that sort of stuff. So let's set that up while it's running. So I'm just going to go here. Let me first unlink this. So let's change the prompts here. So we don't want the text from Ben's Bytes. We want the body. No, we want the text now from Crunchbase. And I'll just say you'll be given a text from a website containing information about a company. Please extract where the company is based, its industries, and number of employees. So before we run that, let's quickly see the text pass, make sure that worked. So yes, it does work, but as you can see, lots of noise in here. So if I had time, I would actually reduce this a bit more. So you can use some regex or some selectors here to reduce it a bit more. But this is all still going to work. So if you want to keep it simple, it's probably the quickest way to do it. So this will be a bit slower because these providers do a lot of things behind the scenes. So they rotate proxies. They might actually just run a headless browser as well, all sorts of stuff just to get around the scraping protection. So we've got an output here. Let's see what it says. Let's see. Awesome. So it's extracted all the information about OpenAI, San Francisco, California, correct. It's got the industries and between 501 and 1,000 employees. Let's have a look. 501 and 1,000. Yep, San Francisco, California. And yeah, those industries look correct. So yeah, super easy to use. Awesome. And then now the last one, which is probably the most interesting one, is if you want to scrape using screenshots. So this is something that wasn't really possible before AI, but now with AI, it is something that I recommend for a lot of clients just because it's the most robust way. And if you're scraping a site that changes a lot, this can save you a lot of pain. So Scraping Bee actually has a screenshot option. So you can use them, but there's a couple of other providers on the market as well. So it's really up to you. Let's just use Scraping Bee because I've just got that set up already. So let me just connect everything. Boom. So let's do OpenAI again, just to keep it simple, right? So let's do this screenshot full page. Let's do the full page to make sure we don't miss anything. That looks good. And then what we want to do is, so you can't actually use OpenAI for this unless you're using the GPT-4 vision models. So I'd highly recommend using Claude because even their cheapest model, Haiku, can take in images. So let's try it with Haiku first. I haven't tried this yet, so it might not work. But let's try it with Haiku. So you can actually pass in an image here. So what we want to do is, you pass in this screenshot, which should just pass in. I can't remember exactly what the format is. Let's just try JPEG. Let's see if this works. So pass in the screenshot, and I'll just say you will be given a screenshot. And this time, let's also ask it for the founders, which is all these names here. And founders. Cool. Let's see if this runs. It might not work just because of the format of the image, but let's see. So Scraping Bee is going to Crunchbase and taking a screenshot, a full page screenshot of the whole page. and pass it into Anthropic. And you can see here, yep, the image format is wrong. So let's quickly have a look to see what it is. Awesome. So it works now. I actually had to go to the Scraping Bee docs to quickly double check what the format was. So it was a PNG file. So that's just here in the Scraping Bee docs PNG file. So yeah, so I updated that and ran it. It works now. You can see it's come back. Let's see. So yeah, it's come back with all the founders as well. So yeah, it's also said the image doesn't contain any human faces, but yeah, besides the point. Anyways, so that's how you would use a screenshot to scrape. If you're building this in a workflow, I'd highly recommend in the prompt saying return this data as a JSON file. So something like return this as a JSON. So once you return it as a JSON file, you can pass that JSON object and then use those pieces of data as you want. So maybe you want to send an email to OpenAI saying, dear XYZ person, I see your company has 501 to 1,000 employees, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, you can sort of use web scraping however you want. It's a whole industry in and of itself. But this should give you a very strong starting point for scraping basically any site on the internet. But yeah, I went through pretty quickly. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll try to get back to you. If you have any thoughts or ideas on what I should cover next, just let me know. And yeah, feel free to give this a rewatch. If it was a bit too fast, put it on 0.5x, that sort of stuff. But yeah, that's it for today. I'll see you next time.